Hello and welcome to my Future of Cities final presentation, in which I'm going to be talking on the future of Chicago, specifically in the year 2046, and just diving into the future of urban living within the city. So the first section kind of discusses how and where the people of Chicago in this time will be living. As displayed here, the current population is sitting roughly at 8.8 million people, and the projected population come 2046 is about a 1 million increase up to roughly 9.8 million people. This data that I got was collected from the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning's demographics forecast within their technical report. Additionally, displayed on this site is the snapshot of the current housing stock map as provided by the DePaul University's Department of Housing Studies. So you can kind of see that on the bottom left there. This displays that high population of condominium and single family homes, which is highlighted in that orange and yellow shades. Sorry if it's kind of difficult to see. But illustrating this kind of just illustrates the need for those higher unit housings and affordable housing. And within my vision city, I think there'll be more intentional investments into affordable housing and then higher unit housing, and particularly city sides where single family dwellings and low unit apartments are present. There will also be this will be done intentionally, and that introduction of higher unit buildings and affordable housing will be gradual as to not impact those single family homeowners negatively. This next section, we'll kind of talk about what they'll be doing in my preferred city's future. As noted in the plethora of materials that we've covered throughout this course, a primary factor in Chicago's success is its location. It's kind of allowed for the city to act as a natural hub for trade and transportation, and establish it as a manufacturing powerhouse with its proximity to the farmland and rural areas alongside its Rust Belt involvement. So due to this, it's kind of evident these areas are flourishing, with food innovation and manufacturing alongside transportation and logistics kind of being those standout areas. Regarding 2046, I feel like a lot of these economic and employment focuses will kind of remain the same, with its impactful location continuing to be utilized. However, I feel like there should be a bit more of an increased focus in ag tech, kind of with that city utilizing its high level universities in Northwestern and U Chicago, and that high education level, and then those agricultural connections and proximity, and then those tech advancements that will come along with the passing of time. This next section, we'll talk about some of the characteristics of city life. As explained on the Wood Spring Suites site, Chicago is one of the most dynamic cities in the U.S., known for its dramatic skyline and strong neighborhood culture. And the Windy City kind of attracts people from across the country to experience that big city living within the Midwest. Within my preferred future, there will be more enhanced investment in the biking infrastructure. Chicago was once crowned the term of the best bicycling city in the nation, and it'll kind of continue this successful development to ensure that biker safety. It also boasts a strong public transportation system that I've utilized throughout my childhood and recently. However, sections of the city still kind of remain untouched and difficult to access, and it's kind of through some increased research and investment in the public transportation system. I think these concerns can be definitely addressed. It's also evident when visiting the city that it's both culturally diverse and artistically rich, with further investment in music and theater, alongside development of its museums, which I frequently visited also, and I definitely recommend. These, alongside more educational investment, I think art can be embraced and kind of improved. And then finally, just further intentional development of its natural spaces, as explained in Module 6 content, including its riverwalk, lakefront, and public parks. I feel like this will kind of increase resident enjoyment and connection throughout the city. Regarding its current economic and social problems, the city of Chicago faces a lot of financial concerns, relying on increasing tax rates to kind of support its declining economic health. Within this process, it kind of continues to drive away those residents that it does currently have, deplete jobs and investment, and then it's ultimately in this process just kind of digging itself a deeper hole. Addressing the city's economic hardship is definitely necessary, as the city is currently kind of taking steps in this process. But deep attention to budget approvals and those fiscal concerns is the first step in addressing this concern. Neighborhood disparities is another primary concern that plagues the city. Through a focus on kind of that affordable and integrated housing, as previously mentioned, that racial and economic separation will kind of slowly be reduced, and I feel like neighborhood equity can definitely be achieved. And then finally, one thing when that's kind of connected to Chicago is that crime and violence. This kind of continues to be a primary concern when discussing the city of Chicago, and the current efforts that they're kind of working on will continue to be implemented, with law enforcement research and funding increasing. And then alongside, I feel like those overall motivators will be reduced through city improvement and citizen enjoyment. Regarding environmental concerns, water systems have kind of had a long history of issues throughout the city's time, from lead within the water systems to that industrial impact on the Chicago River and water system. Some further research and collaboration with companies like the Chicago Department of Water Management and the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago. I feel like that infrastructure could definitely be improved. The concern of data centers is definitely new and evident, and I feel like by the year of 2046, their presence definitely will be increased, though through research and understanding on management practices, alongside different energy forms that will be more ample, especially renewable forms. I think reducing their overall concerns on energy grids and utility bills and noise pollution can definitely be addressed. And then also those concerns of air pollution will definitely be increased or decreased through that integration of green energy sources. And then finally, those concerns on climate change definitely are present with the city's location on Lake Michigan and those harsh seasons that I've definitely experienced growing up there. Due to this, I kind of feel like the introduction of more barrier areas along that lakefront, and then maintaining that lakeside infrastructure will definitely be crucial. And though climate concerns will arise, so will the city preparation to combat it. Kind of additional current problems that people worry about now that will hopefully be gone. That primary concern within this section is Chicago's budget and fiscal concerns. Um, in my ideal future, those citizens have kind of elected a leader that will enact some policies and restore that fiscal health and promote some economic growth, and kind of allow the city to retain and attract residents and businesses and allow it to flourish. The development of more of a long term roadmap for budgeting and balancing is definitely important and will have to be enacted. And that'll kind of allow for a more organized effort at addressing those fiscal concerns. And then regarding some future concerns, I can imagine citizens have explained before that affordable housing efforts will aid in addressing that missing middle concern that's kind of present all the way across our country. And then by introducing those multi unit housing types and adjusting some of those restrictive zoning laws that the city currently holds, I think that can definitely be addressed. How probable is my vision? I kind of viewed it as fairly probable. There's definitely, with those adjustments and improvements in the current concerns within those next 5 to 10 years, I believe is definitely that crucial area, that sweet spot, as kind of reworking those laws and restrictions alongside development of plans allows for more success in that latter 10 year period. I think the economic and business success that the city has kind of had historically will continue to attract residents. And as mentioned before, that geographical location will definitely continue to serve as a support for the city's success. And it's not really changing, it's kind of just staying in place. And then just finally, the idea on quality of life improvements, focusing on those existing systems that are kind of already in place and redeveloping them as opposed to fully removing them and recreating them. I feel like that kind of reduces the overall resource requirements and the roadblocks that you may experiencing when you're planning. Regarding individual actions that you can do moving forward, and then the top 5 things, I guess I can go back and highlight top 5 things that need to be done now. I'd say number one, probably an increased budget focus, as that's one of those main concerns. Just rewriting the budget issues that are currently and have plagued the city, and just allow for a baseline in future development. I think transportation, research, and development is definitely important. Addressing those concerns of citizens' happiness, and then pollution, environmental concerns, and it kind of weaves the city together and creates more community. I think the development of a master or comprehensive plan is definitely important, as development of kind of those baseline goals and predictions, and setting some requirements for future projects will definitely foster a growth environment. I think the implementation of some affordability policies to definitely diversify that housing market and make living within the city attainable, and then kind of address that movement out of city and the declining population that Chicago is experiencing. And then also kind of improving the city's natural spaces, as I talked about before, with that riverfront and that lakeside area. Kind of integrating also the wildlife, as we had talked about in, I believe it was Module 5, and then just also planting more trees. That is kind of a common thing with all the cities across the world, especially in the US, to reduce those carbon emissions and footprint of the city. And then regarding some individual actions that me or other residents within the city of Chicago could do to help realize or prepare for the future that I prefer, I think the main one is just supporting the local economy. Regarding me, it would be more tourism, I guess, related, because I wouldn't be there consistently. But for those living in it, it would just be kind of supporting small businesses and just supporting each other of whoever's living in the city. I think public transit utilization, kind of using the systems that already exist, is kind of necessary for that funding or improvement. And then also just advocating for potential improvements and voicing those concerns that you do have, to kind of let them grow and understand what the community is feeling or needs. I think just community and governmental engagement is definitely important, no matter if it's Chicago or another small city, completely across the country, just involving yourself with the local government, joining groups or organizations that kind of seek to make an impact. And then finally, fostering community connection, just connecting with other members of the city, talking with your neighbors, joining organizations, joining nonprofit or advocacy groups, and then just visiting and participating in public spaces and kind of bridging those gaps of communication. And yeah. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching this presentation. I truly hope you enjoyed. And then here are the sources that I have utilized throughout this presentation. Thank you.